Hello YouTube, this is Scott, Sega Saturn lad, back with a Sega Saturn magazine review or overview, however you want to play it. This is issue 19. It's been a long time since I've done one of these videos, haven't done one recently. So I thought it'd be a good time to have a quick skim through, see what the state of play was back in May 1997. So it's March 2020 now, so that's what, 23 years old, this magazine. Crazy. So first of all, we've got Quake, the exclusive PC mega game, comes to Saturn. As we all know, that was a very good conversion of Quake, and you'd have thought that that was a big game back in the day. Don't really get the sort of PC exclusives that don't run on consoles anymore, do you? You know, the AAA PC only titles, not anymore. So we've got Hard Trilogy. I personally always found it a bit of a mismatch of a game. The Die Hard 1 section is very clunky. The Die Hard 2 Light 1 is quite good. Do quite enjoy that. But the third one is almost like a sign of a kind of very early Grand Theft Auto. You know, where you've got the New York. So it's quite an interesting idea. So contents. So more on Quake Pandemonium we have there. This one also comes with a demo, so Sega Flash Volume 4. I do have that. I've got all of the Sega Saturn demos in storage. And this one, obviously, Die Hard Arcade, Sonic 3D, Virtual On. Lots of reviews as well. This was the Saturn was still relevant. So, what do we have here? Panzer Dragoon RPG. So, you wouldn't necessarily see this for another 2 years yet, because this was launched in, what year was this? 1997? No, it was coming out about a year later, didn't it? Yeah, Panzer Dragoon, I think came out about like mid 98. So yeah, obviously highly sought after game. Everyone knows the story of it. It's a limited run, limited copies, very expensive these days. Outstanding game though, very good. If you're not into RPGs, it's not very different. It's not kind of similar to many RPGs as well. It's turn-based, but it plays very well. Canned. So it looks like this was obviously over the year, what, a year and a half. This is issue 19. Already the writer was on the wall. So third-party support for the Saturn appears to be slacking off in some quarters, with many companies re-evaluating their release strategy. Sega Saturn magazine has learned that Bullfrog have canned Syndicate Wars, despite looking very promising. Acclaim's Fantastic Four and Batman and Robin are now off the schedule, although the potentially brilliant Condemned still be coming out. The real shock for us was the cancellation of Saturn Wild Nights. Apparently Shiny's Dave Perry has become very disillusioned with Sega America's Saturn strategy and has pulled out of the development race until a new machine appears. So, you know, that's a while yet. The good news is that Sega themselves are rescuing many great products from development limbo, making sure they reach European shops. Case in point being Mass Destruction and Pandemonium. So I don't know if Sega had an active involvement in those games. So blockbuster charts. Hexen 2 announced for Saturn. I don't even think Hexen 2 came out on anything, did it? Didn't go out on PlayStation or 64. So Reloaded, that was a bit of a funny one. There's a demo of Reloaded on not this, but Saturn Power, the other Sega Saturn magazine, like the unofficial one. They occasionally did demos, and there's a Reloaded demo, but the game never got released. Top 10 rental videos: Exiles, Independence Day, 12 Monkeys, rental videos: Phenomenon, Twister, Eraser, Arnie, Diode Arcade, Sonic Boom, or Sonic 3D rather, Doom, Exhumed, so Area 51, another advert for Hexen, PlayStation, Sega Saturn. You've got Quake. No, this isn't Quake, this is Duke Nukem, isn't it? Special report, Hail to the King. This is another game that came out very, very well on the Saturn, didn't it? It was really well received. Lots of nice lighting effects in that one. Quake. So these are the Saturn, PCs for Saturn. See, from that screenshot, that looks very, very good. When you play it, it's quite a dark game, and some of the textures are a bit not great, but the lighting effects are fantastic in Quake. So, I've said it before, but whenever I do these, read these magazines, it's always fascinating to go back and look at the interviews, because, you know, they really did review, so they really did get very good access to, you know, key developers back in the Saturn's days. Here they are sort of chatting to Lobotomy Software, who are, you know, quite well known in the Saturn community, with Exhumed, Duke and Quake. Interesting. Micke Warrior 2. I don't believe this come out. I might be wrong. It's not a game I'm familiar with, to be honest. Imagine it. I don't know. I think it did actually. They've always sort of bypassed me, those mech games. So you've got adverts. Wouldn't be a games magazine without Special Reserve. So at the time, 125 quid. Just suppose. With inflation, it's probably closer to 200. In terms of prices, Mr. Bone, £33. Street Fighter Alpha. Interesting. Pandemonium. Again, another game that gets really compared to the PlayStation version very, very frequently. Whenever you see a sort of PlayStation versus Saturn video on YouTube, this game is one of the sort of first games that seems to get compared to the PlayStation. This and sort of Tomb Raider always get compared to each other. And this one is, it's not as good as the PlayStation version, as they say. It's, you know, it's a bit more, it's not as nice looking, and the textures are not as good, and just the usual kind of differences between the systems. Atlantis from what I know about this, this is a point and click game on the Saturn, one of these kind of full motion video games that span quite a few CDs. I couldn't tell you how. I think it is more pricey than it needs to be these days. Bethlem, I don't think that come out. I think that was one of the many games that didn't make it, unfortunately. Looks like more of a strategy kind of game. Not familiar with it anyway. I'm not sure if it came out on PS1 or Zap, Snowball and Tricks. So this did come out. Was this Steep Slope Sliders? I don't think it did. No, I don't think it did. It came out in the Japan. I don't think it came out in Europe. Well, it definitely didn't come out in Europe. I don't know if it's Steep Slope Sliders on a different name. I don't think it is. I think it's its own game. Shining the Holy Ark. One of the Shining Force series. I used to own all of the Shining Force games. So Shining Wisdom, Shining Holy Ark, and Shining Force 3. I used to own them all when I was a PAL Saturn collector, but it was kind of just money sitting on the shelf really. I'm not an RPG kind of guy, so moved them on. The Crow City of Angels, so again, alright, well known for being a right turd, this game. Clunky controls and dodgy graphics and a real shitstorm. So computer and video games. What was that? That was like the original, wasn't it? The really good magazine that was, multi-format. One of the first kind of multi-format games from back in the day. Multi-format magazines, going back to, you know, the Commodore and Spectrum days, really, you know, the real early kind of UK gaming scene, really. So King of Fighters 96 on the Saturn, Star Fox 64, Final Fantasy 7, Pod on PC. I played that on the Dreamcast. Pod. It's not a great game. So you have, as always with these age of magazines, people would write in to the editors and writers for their thoughts on various Saturn related conundrums. Normally you used to get quite a sarcastic reply back. This was before the days of email. Have they even got email on here? So yeah, you've got an address, Isle of Dogs. So Doom. Let's get down to a reasonable question. Are Age Software going to give us a decent version of Doom or not? So, questions and answers. PlayStation Plus, Micro Machines V3. That was always a bit of a slap in the face with Sega. You know, Codemasters were quite sort of Sega Pro, weren't they? Back on the Mega Drive games. And the only game they launched for the Saturn was John Olomu Rugby. And they were still very they were big developers, bigger than what I'd imagine what they are now. But Micro Machines at the time was a massive deal, and it not coming out on Saturn was quite a slap in the face. Ironically, none of these cars or toys are Micro Machines themselves, though. And of course, you've got the beautiful lady, who's probably about 60 now. Every new PlayStation game reviewed and rated. Saturn Bong LAN. Another great conversion, or original title, isn't it, really? Still kind of well thought of you know, in the sort of, I suppose, you know, Bomberman history. It's kind of seen as one of the best titles in the series, due to the sort of multiplayer aspect, and the graphics of it are very Japanese 32-bit. Can go up to 10 players, can't it, I believe? Which is crazy. You can see the 2D of the Saturn, it really sings. Swagman. I don't think it's necessarily a bad game. It kind of reminds me of Zombies on the Mega Drive and SNES. It's quite a creepy kind of aesthetic to it, I think, as well. A very expensive game now. I know this was only a PAL launch, didn't come out in any region, and I think that's boosted the price up of it quite significantly, because I do think Saturn collectors in other regions source this game, and due to limited number of copies, and with it not being a half bad game, they generally want it. It's a little Swagman. It's again like quite a creepy looking, not necessarily just a straightforward colourful kids title. Again, more interview with the sort of programmers. So this is where you have your information regarding the games on the CD. So Virtual On, again, Virtual On, very good game. Very unique game as well. You have to understand the motion to it and the feel of the controls and the tactics behind it, but it's a very deep and rewarding game. Die Hard Arcade, so again another good game there. Probably the best, you'd say, beat 'em up on, I'd say maybe this generation. There's not really anything that stands out. I don't think it's necessarily because the game is an outstanding game. I think it's because this generation, that kind of type of game, or that genre of game, really was left in limbo. You know, where on the 16-bit systems you know, obviously everyone talked about Streets of Rage and the Final Fights, but the next step up, it was all 3D, and it was one of these games that its roots were so entrenched in 2D, it was difficult to move on to the next dimension, really. Sonic 3D. These 3D half-pipe levels are very impressive if you get the chance to see it. The actual game itself is just simply a Mega Drive port, but the special stages are quite good. So they've got footage of Manx TT, Fighters Megamix, Mass Destruction. That's all you needed back in the day. That's all you needed. King Fighters 96. do have that upstairs somewhere. This is one that come with a 1 meg RAM card, being an SNK game. So you can kind of tell, because they were struggling for maybe content, you know, their focus is on the Japanese games, because they were just so successful, you know, in Japan, the Saturn. And you see that later and later in the magazines as they get kind of less information in Europe. Their focus does turn to imports, which is bizarre considering it's the official magazine as well. This is the sort of stuff that you would find in unofficial magazines, really. I think if anything, these games have got more of an appreciation now than potentially what they did back in the day. You know, you look at the 2D-ness of it, and it, you know, there's a beauty to the artwork that that's aged fantastically well. So Saturn Bong LAN, recommended 90%. I'd say that's an accurate reflection. It's a very, very playable game. It's basically a party game, really, isn't it? Crit Killer, 47%. I've never played it. I've seen enough about it, and I know that the main criticism tends to be how pixelated the graphics are. And when you compare it to the PlayStation version, it's very different as well. I don't think it plays that bad though. I think it's actually quite a fun shooting game. But it's again, kind of shooting games were, you know, when you had your Virtua Cop, it's difficult to, I suppose, recommend it. But you know, these are predominantly 2D though, aren't they? FIFA 97. So, you know, this was when FIFA was on Sega, which was a long, long time ago. After this one, you'd only get one more launch, one more FIFA 98. The road to the World Cup. Cool. So, yeah, enjoy it while it lasts, lads. And I think this FIFA carried on the PlayStation up until, what, I think it was like FIFA 2006 or something. I know they do the legacy versions, don't they? Where they just literally updated kits more than anything, but it's still quite impressive for a game to run that long. I think Pro Evo 2016 or something was the last PlayStation 2 launch, wasn't it? Crazy. So NBA Live 97, another EA. So yeah, again, not much of a kind of American sports fan, but I'm sure at the time it was probably passable. 67%. The only basketball game I've ever really sat down and played was NBA Jam. Dragonheart. Oh, this was a terrible game. Based on a film I actually went to go and see when I was a kid. Must have been about this time. So I'd probably been at maybe, I don't know, 13 or 14. And yeah, Sean Connery, he voices this dragon, and I think he's the last dragon alive. And something but they need to kill the dragon to save something. And the knight that's sent to kill him befriends him and whatnot. But again, this was back in the day when every big movie would get a game. Not that you see that these days. What was surprising was that there's a new Terminator game out on PS4, and it coincided with the Terminator, the new Terminator with Linda Hamilton in, that's just come out, and that was bizarre to see a movie tie-in. The game isn't based on the movie, but to see a kind of a game release alongside a movie these days is it just doesn't happen. Swagman, 88%. That's a solid score, I think. It's not the best game on the system, but it's certainly a good attempt. Core Design, they were big supporters of the Saturn. Super Puzzle Fighter Turbo. Just more your kind of columns clone, really. I used to have what do you call it? The actual 2D fighter of this. I think it's just called Puzzle Fighter, isn't it? Is it Puzzle Fighter? Puzzle Fighter. No. I don't know, but you've got the small sprites, and they actually fight each other. It doesn't play very well. 86%. Okay, not as bad. That's called Space Jam. Another movie tie-in. 53%. Return Fire. So I think this was very, very similar to Mass Destruction, but I don't think it's quite as good. It's that kind of Desert Strike kind of with a tank view where you get sent missions and things to destroy and things to do. 80%, that's not bad. A Black Dawn. That's quite surprising. This was a Sega of America release title, or developed title rather. Actually done by Virgin, it says here, for Europe. And I don't think it's got a very good reputation. I can't say I've ever played it though myself. Tirico, 66% again. This is quite a pricey game nowadays. One of these full motion video titles, and it's called something else in various regions, but yeah, imagine it's a bit of a slog to probably play through these days though. So you got cheats, tips as they say. Ultimate War Combat. Again, this is Afterburner 2. Again, probably a good way of just bulking the magazine out a little bit, weren't it? Fighters Megamix. This game had so much hidden content in it. It was crazy. It's quite famous for the Sonic fighters and the car from Daytona and Virtua Fighter characters. Hard Trilogy. Not sure why you'd need a guide for a shooting game. I'd imagine you just shoot everything, wouldn't you? Soviet Strike. Never played the 32-bit Strike games. Used to really enjoy the when I was a kid, had the Desert, Jungle and Urban Strike on the Mega Drive, and they were sort of high-end EA games. I think graphically it always looks quite good, this. So then we get to the arcades. So the AOU show. Oh, so you have Scud Race. Fantastic game that. It's got Top Skater. There's actually a, so I'm nearly up with the camera. In my local arcade, believe it or not, there is an actual working arcade of this Top Skater. I mean, it's beaten up and it's screen burnt to hell, but to see it out in the wild is fantastic, really. Me and my little boy, we were playing it last year, and it's just you know, you don't really see that kind of age of arcade machines out in actual arcades now, do you really? The arcade's pretty run down anyway, but and there's only a handful of machines. They've actually got a Daytona as well, a proper sit-down Daytona. They've probably had it for about 20 years, but it's still quite nice to have a look and have a go on them. So House of the Dead, this must have been when it was just shown, 80%. Virtual Striker, not a great game by anyone's standards. Very, very hard to control. And so Capcom, Darkstalkers, or Vampire Savior, or whatever title you want to call it. Battle Circuit. It's a CP system too. Can't say I've heard of that one. Namco, Alpine Racer. This might have been Sony's bum chums. Armadillo Racing. Taito. Yeah, a train simulator. G Darius. Konami Hang Pilot. Operation Thunder Hurricane. And you have SNK. Wheelbout Special. Street Fighter 3. And then you've just kind of got the games that get launched the month before, really. Mates TT. Mass Destruction. Mega Man X3. What, 300 quid these days, ain't it, that? And next month you've got Jurassic Park 2 The Lost World. Graphically, I think it looks quite well. The frame rate's a bit meh, but so next month, all going well, we should have the mother of cover mount demo CDs. They don't though. This at this time, whereas the PlayStation used to get the official PlayStation magazine used to get cover CDs every issue. There was only 7 CDs launched for this, and this run for 38 issues. So yeah, they were very, very sporadic. I don't know if it was down. I think the editor Richard Ledbetter has said that a lot of it was down to Sega and their organisation at the time, because I don't think games was really an issue. I think it was even just getting the CDs printed. Right, so I'll leave it at that. Thanks for watching. Take care.